Howdy YouTube. Today, I'm going to be joined by my buddy, Coda. We're going to be talking about probably the least popular part of Archives 3, Cants. Now, Cants are magical incantations, not spells, that give wizards a lot more power and options. Though the lore blurb seems to make them out to be rarely taught, mechanically, you are allowed to take them after you master your first, third, and sixth spell. I highly recommend restricting learning Cants. For example, I think you should only have access to the third tier Cants after learning your sixth spell and having somebody who trusts you teach it to you. Right now, you can learn the tier 3 Cants as your first Cant after learning one spell and you just kinda get it. Now, Cants rely on the new channeling update that comes with Archives 3, and if you don't know about that, go ahead and check out my video on it. Not only do I go over the new rules in that video, I also go over some ways to balance out the new channeling rules. All you need to know for this video though, is that channeling now lets you store SL to be used on spells or Cants within about a minute. You use your SL that you gather up with the new rules to use them, right?
Yeah, and from what I was reading, they don't even take an action most of the time.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually did legitimately miss that. I know this sounds like a salesman thing. Really, do tell me more. No, but I really didn't know that. That's crazy. They don't cost an action? Alright, yeah. So some of them that I thought were... Because I've had to read a few of them, right? I haven't read them all. But I had to read a few of them. Some of them I was like, dude, this is useless. But if it's not even an action, then why not, right?
Yeah, it's just a way to overall buff wizards, which I feel like is a good way to make them stand out, because they are supposed to be like magical fucking weirdos.
Yeah, no, totally.
Not just able to cast spells, like magic is in them.
Yeah, no, totally. Yes, absolutely. Now, a lot of people want the high risk, high reward, but I don't think this does anything in that direction, right? This is just like, this just makes them more powerful.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have any real risks attached to it, and they're pretty subtle overall.
Well, now, hold on a minute. You have to hold on to that channeled energy, so in a way, you know, especially if you're using some of the balanced rules, if you get hit while saving up that channeled energy to Cant, you could vent it out, or not vent it safely, but it would come out in a miscast or something, potentially. So there's a small risk. It's
generally why people who are playing wizards are playing on the back line, hopefully.
Yeah.
No one's up front channeling next to an Ungor or something.
Right. Alright, so, for this tier list, I've got S being very useful in any situation. These would be Cants that you could use inside combat, outside of combat, just any time, right? Next is useful in most situations. Maybe it's useful in combat and out of it. Maybe it's only useful in combat or out. But, you know, it's got a lot of use. You could use it often. More than, you know, say 2-3 times at the table. Average usefulness. This is what you'd, like, expect from like a wizard Cant, I guess, right? C would be, like, limited utility, where you're, like, very situationally getting it off, right? And then finally we've got Garbo tier, which hopefully nobody falls into, but I guess we'll find out, right? We should make this clear, right? We're only doing the starter Cant, which only costs 1 SL per, like, thing of it you want to do. Some of them you can use multiple SLs in them, if I remember correctly. It's like 4 each SL.
Some of them scale with what power you're using. Some of them just have a scaling cost. Alright,
so starters, I think this is Shadow Wizard we've got, right? Ulgu's Touch for Shadowmancer, Lord Shadow. By expending a single SL, you can cloak yourself in Ulgu. So this just basically lets you add a number of SLs up to your willpower bonus to any stealth tests that you make this round. Adding them after the dice have been rolled, but before the GM describes the results. So this is kind of like I guess, a boost. And counter to how success levels normally work, you can, I guess, use these whether you succeed or not. So this is, I'd say that's pretty good, especially as a stealth wizard. You want to be stealthing, right? Shadow Wizard?
From my understanding, this is actually very, very good.
So this just makes them actually nutty. There will never be a time when, like, you have a apprentice Shadow Wizard who, you know, it's nighttime, the guards are drunk, and they still fail their stealth roll. This should surely You know, outside of rolling a 100, right? This should, I think, pretty much give them... I would say inside combat, outside of combat, this is useful, like, all the time. I would put this in S tier.
I was thinking that as well, because finally Shadowmancers are going to live up to their reputation. They're not going to have to wait 3 turns to channel to cast Invisibility, which lasts a minute.
Only the miscast and blind themselves. So, what do we got next? We've got Amber Wizard. Now, this one, if I remember correctly, from our resident... Well, I shouldn't say too much. Ooh, okay, this is the fear one. You gain 1 fear level, it seems. You can't charge it up like the other one. It doesn't scale, but you do gain a fear level, which is pretty strong in most situations in this game, if I'm not mistaken.
Gers has a special effect where each time you cast a spell from its school, you gain a fear token for 1d10 rounds.
Oh shit, so... like that, and that stacks?
It does stack, and it also has multiple spells in its school that just give you a fear token on top of that.
What, so you could go to like fear 4 in like a turn?
Fear 4, fear 3, and then
Jesus.
Most of those spells also buff your melee. And when someone who's afraid of you in this game, and you're charging at them, if they haven't passed their fear test, they immediately break. You won the fight.
Yeah, I always feel like, you know, if you can avoid a fight, it's a lot faster than fighting, right? That's how the blunderbuss was kind of early on before I had to, you know,
sometimes
not so much.
It's better to scare everyone off by being a glowing, snarling wizard lady.
Now, I would say you could use this in or out of combat, and it's... I mean, you couldn't use this in, like, a court, right? But you
Probably not in a court, but in, like, a general day-to-day situation.
Actually, you could.
Anytime you want to, like, intimidate someone.
Think about it. Like some nobles are, like, I don't know, hunting in a domain they're not supposed to, or they're just being stupid, right? And you're, like, the wizard, and you gotta be like, dude, stop being a dummy. You could go in there, and you could freak the shit out of them. And you'd be like, the fucking will of nature will be upon you if you don't fucking listen to me. It's gonna be like the end of Dr. Dolittle 2. And that's the one where they cut down the forest, I think, right? But yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling. Is this A or S?
I would put it in A tier, because it's useful in most situations, but not every situation.
Yeah, you don't... Sometimes you want, like, like, you don't want to scare somebody to death, right? Or, like... I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, there's subtler things, right? So, yeah, probably A, right?
Yeah, there's generally only... This is only going to get real negative reactions. You can't really find a use for this in any situation.
We got Laura Light. Let's see. Okay, Bright Eyes. By spending 1 SL of gathered power, your eyes glow. You gain dark vision, and you're immune to blind. Blinded conditions you already have are ignored, but return once the cant ends. And this happens till the beginning of your next turn. Who is calling me?
I would say that this has extremely limited uses. Like, you're either going to be using it when you're in complete darkness, which, if I actually remember correctly, dark vision isn't like night vision. It's more like you can just see further into the dark than normal people. Generally, blindness is a pretty rare condition. I mean, it could help if your character's already blind, because natural blindness is a blindness condition. So,
blindness can be cured. I just got off the phone with the Chinese producers. Can also be cured by the traditional red bean bun or tang hulu or tang yuan, which you can get at your local Bing Chiling store.
Blinded, it's super debilitating if it ever does happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
But when is it ever going to happen to you?
I feel like that comes down to your GM,
so
but you're
it's
right.
Extremely situational.
Yeah, it's kind of down to your GM, but I feel like that's kind of true. It's not like it's D&D where people are throwing off thunderstones or dazzling lights, right? It's a lot harder to get blinded off. Now, I mean, you could have people be throwing pocket sand, right? Or shit like that. blind you. But again, I think that comes down to your GM. It's not a reliable.
If you're a bright wizard and you let someone who'd throw pocket sand in your eyes get close enough to throw pocket sand in your eyes, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, kind of a good point. Especially when you can shoot laser beams and shit.
I say put this in D.
D Garbo.
It has uses, but when are those uses ever going to ever actually come into play?
Yeah, it is a little Garbo, I guess. I want to put it on like the border between limited and Garbo, but I guess it is kind of Garbo. Speaking of Garbo, our next one is Death Wizard. Which, now that I know... Well, so that's the thing. It's not an action, right? So you just gain that. I guess you're right. So, Eyes of Death. Expending 1 SL of power, you can see how many wounds, basically. A GM describes... It says in relative terms. But that means nothing, right? Because, like, isn't that kind of what we already do as GMs? We say, oh, you know, he doesn't look so good. He doesn't look like he can take much more. Oh, he's bleeding heavily. But he still seems like he could put up a good fight. Like, don't we already do that? So I feel like this gives you like a number range or something.
Yeah, probably give it a more of like
he's like 2 to 5 wounds
range, or something like he's on his last half. He's half dead.
Yeah.
He's 15% of his life left, something like that.
I would say you do like a range of 10. And then you minus it by your willpower bonus or something like that, or maybe like a range of like 5, and that way once you're like a full, you can see exactly how close somebody is to death, right? When you're a master wizard, you have 5 willpower bonus.
But there is some utility in RP for this.
Yeah, for like boss fights, I suppose, or like trolls, such like that.
I was thinking more like if you're at like a hospital, you could help point out the Shalian nurses who's the sickest, who's the closest to death.
What? I didn't even think of it like that. I sheerly thought like murder hobo. Or you could be
walking through a battlefield looking at performing medieval triage. This dude's way too close to death. Don't even waste a bandage.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
It has some... You have to be creative with it. Kind of pull your own uses out of it. Because just by reading at it, it just looks like, hey, you read the monster's health pool.
Yeah. You know, that's a really solid point, man. That's a really solid... I thought here I was thinking this would be in like C or D tier, but this is actually... You could use this pretty much, I wouldn't say anywhere, but okay, for example, you could use this in a court. Oh, hey, you have a sick noble relative? Here, let me look at him. Oh, dude, he's not doing so well, man. Anything, I don't know.
It does fit a Death Wizard's idea.
Yeah. I always thought it felt on character, right? It was very on script for the Death Wizard to have this. But I guess I didn't see the other utility to it.
I'd say put it in C tier. It's
I'm gonna put it in
limited.
B tier.
B tier? Alright.
Yeah, because think about this, man. For one, it doesn't cost an action, so you can constantly be like updated in battle. It's only 1 SL, right? You don't need to worry about scaling it. Normally, like I like the ones that scale, I think they're better, but in this case, think about this. You channel, right? You have your robes. It gives you an extra thing above your thing. Maybe you have etheric attunement as well. You can spend a thing to get it down so you're not as bloated on magic. That way when you get hit, there's not as big of a chance of you miscasting as hard, right? I don't know. I think this is pretty decent, especially for a beginner, because the beginner's not going to have etheric attunement and the robes. They're going to have one or the other or neither, right? So,
if I remember correctly, the Death Wizard has a few spells that are like, if you kill someone with a spell, you get an extra bonus, correct?
They have a couple things like that. Some of the things are like, here, let me double check, but I know some of the things are like, you can drain health from people, so you can see how much health you could drain, right?
Well, I was thinking this would help you look for someone with the lowest amount of health to snipe to get that extra effect on whatever that spell is.
Yeah, let me check real quick. Death Wizard, I think.
Yeah, I'd say B is probably where it goes.
So yeah, actually there is one. I just saw it the last second. There is one. Swift passing. If you successfully touch a target with 0 runes remaining and at least 2 critical wounds, death swiftly follows. So that's more like putting somebody out of their misery, I guess. I feel like at that point, it's one of those things, it's like you study for thousands of years to be able to lift a spoon. Meanwhile, the guy next to you just stabs the guy in the heart, right? Or like cuts his head off. Oh, you're not in pain anymore. Or like crushes his head, right?
I mean, yeah. Mastered a magic of death to make someone pass peacefully when you could just drop a rock on his head.
Well, I mean, sure, I guess. Yeah, man, yeah, I would say B, probably. I definitely got talked up, because I was going to definitely put this in, like, limited or garbo. I would actually put it in A tier, to be honest. Because think about this, you're going to be using this... No, listen, you're going to be using this almost every session, probably. Any session with combat, for sure. And then you can get creative with it after you said. And this is not what I would expect. It's above what I would expect. Because I just seeing it reacting raw off, I didn't even think about using it outside of combat for, like, good purposes. But you definitely could. You think it should be B?
I think B or A. It's a high B if it's going to be a B.
Yeah. I'm going to put A just because I do think people will be using this every single session with combat, which should be
with
every
how
other
often
combat.
it would possibly be used, I would say, yeah, probably put it in A.
Gold Wizard. By expending an SL of gathered power, all metal power, you basically get an additional AP. 1 AP armor point for any metal armor you have. And as a wizard of metal, you should be wearing heavy metal, because you can. It's the only thing that doesn't fuck up your magic. You wear any other kind of armor, it will.
I'd say this is just a solid B.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, no, probably more of a C, because it's just only going to be used in combat. So while it's very useful in combat, it's only ever going to ever be used in combat.
That is a good point. And it's only for 1 turn.
So it's like, hey, I know I'm about to get hit. Let's just make this not hurt as much.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. This is when you're in, like, melee. Hey everybody, sorry to interrupt, but this video is getting a bit long in the teeth, so for the sake of your attention span, we're going to be splitting the rest of the tier list into a second part. Be sure to stay tuned though, as some of the most powerful abilities in the entire game are in the next part, so don't miss out! Thanks so much for watching, love you all very much, and we'll meet again real soon. Later!